What's up you data friends, it's Yanis here and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to go over the 7 most used formulas in Excel. And more specifically, we are going to break this video down into these 7 sections you see down here, where we have the question, then we have the answer with the formula, and we also have the formula printed over here. And before we jump into this video, let me just say that if you're passionate about data analytics and data science, then please consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and enable notifications for my future videos. Right, starting with the raw data we're going to use for all of the formulas. This is some car dealership raw data where we have the make, which is the car, the model of the car, the MSRP, which is like the retail price of the car, the invoice price, the used and new price, the body size, body style, horsepower with RPM, torque, and then the highway fuel economy. This dataset has both text, also numbers, and also some text with numbers columns, which is very similar to what you're going to be working with. Right, starting with the most famous and most commonly used formulas is the aggregation formulas. And this is the sum, the average, the count, the minimum, and the maximum. You are going to be using this day in and day out, so you'll need to know how to run this. They are actually very easy. So if I unhide this tab quickly, which is empty, and we are going to test these formulas, to run a sum, you need to click equals, type in sum, open brackets, and then select the range or the specific numbers that you want to sum. In our case, I'm just going to sum all of the MSRP column, which is basically the retail price of the cars. So this is telling me that the total retail price for all cars combined is 1.7 million. Now, if I drag this on the right hand side, it's going to repeat the same thing for the invoice price column and also for the used and new price column. As you can see, if you keep dragging it this way, it just repeats the formula. Here is no summing because this is text, but this is a number, so it's summing it. However, I don't want to sum those columns. Moving on, we have the average, where we basically need to say equals average, open brackets, and then select the range we want to average, or select specific cells we want to average. By the way, if you want to select specific cells, you have to click Control and then select the cells you want to select. However, I'm just going to select the whole range, close brackets, click Enter, and then drag this along, same as sum. Next, we have count, and in order to count the number of makes, we have to say equals count, and then open brackets, oh my god, press this twice, select the range, and then close brackets. Now, this is actually not going to work. If I press enter, you can see it says 0 because count is only for numbers and count A is both numbers and text. So if I drag this quickly, you can see that it didn't work on text, it didn't work on text, but it works on numbers. So this is saying we have 14 numbers or 14 rows in our case. So if we want to count the text, we have to do count A, which is count all, and then click enter, and this is going to work. As you can see, it's counting the number of makes. Next, we have the minimum and the maximum, which is exactly the same way as the previous formulas. So equals min, and then open brackets, select the range, close brackets, enter. This is the minimum value we currently have, and then for maximum equals max, and then select the range, and then this is the maximum value we have. Right, and let's say you have an Excel test now and they want to test your aggregation knowledge. You are going to get questions like these questions down here. So very quickly, we can answer them all. What is the total MSRP for all cars? This is the formula we have used for total MSRP. If we copy and paste it, now you need to be careful, it gives us a different number because the range, if I click on the formula, has moved down. So make sure the range is always correct when you're copying and pasting the cell itself. So if I click enter, we get the same value. What we can do, we can copy the formula itself and then it's not going to change. So what is the average invoice price for all cars? This is the average invoice price. I can copy the whole formula and then I can paste it down here, enter, and you can see it gave the same number. How many Audi cars we have? Now we can do equals count A, because we are going to count a text and then select the Audi cars. It's these two, as you can see, close brackets, we have 2. What is the minimum horsepower for all cars? So this one is exactly the same as this, actually, minimum horsepower. So if I copy it and then I paste it, we get the correct number. And this, what is the max horsepower, is missing the P, horsepower for sedan cars. Now we have to do equals max and then select the horsepower for all the sedan cars, which is these ones over here, as you can see. And then close bracket, and we can see the maximum is 626. If you want the formulas, by the way, you can get them from this tab over here. Moving on, we are going into the VLOOKUPs. VLOOKUPs are something you are going to use again day in and day out, because VLOOKUPs give you the ability to combine different data together. Let's say, for example, let me unhide this for examples, so these 3. Let's say that you have this data set and there is another column called, where is the other column? Let me find it quickly. This is it. Let me move them close to each other. There we go. So let's say you have another column called invoice price and you want to join this column in your existing data set over here. Just because, let's say you have a question from the business or you're running an Excel test and you get a question saying, join the price and find the most expensive car in terms of invoice price, which is the invoice price we have over here. To achieve this, you're going to have to copy this column or join this column with this data set. To do this though, you need a common key, like a column that both tables have, and you can use it to match them together. In our case, it's very straightforward. We can see is the ID key on both of them, so we're going to use that. However, in your case, it might not be this straightforward. So what you need to do is that you will need to identify a distinct column that exists on both datasets that you can use to match them together. Right, to answer the question now, what is the most expensive car based on the invoice price? We will need to join the invoice price. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it over here, make this a bit bigger. Let's change the color so we know it's a new column, bold, and then in the middle, and we will need to say equals VLOOKUP, open brackets. We need to first select the lookup value, which is basically our key, which is going to be this one, comma, then we will have to select our range. So this is the range that the lookup is going to look into and find the number 1 and then return the column we're going to say to it. So in our case, we wanted to return the second column. So this is 1 and then this is 2. So number 2 and then comma, 0 is for an approximate match and then 1 is for an exact match. So I'm just going to say 1. Close it, and you can see we have 92,685, 92,685. So if I double click this cross now, you can see it repeated the same VLOOKUP for all of our cars. And what I can do now is that I can make this look a bit nicer. So I'm just going to select the dotted lines. Then I'm going to add borders with dotted lines. I'm going to move them in the middle. I'm going to make them values like this, so they look much nicer. And now we need to find the most expensive car. What we can do is say max, so we can see which number is the max, and then identify the most expensive car. 205, which is this number over here, which is basically the Aston Martin DB11. So that is the answer for the first question, and to get there we had to do a VLOOKUP. Another example down here is to find the car with the least torque. And to do this, we have another lookup table over here that has torque. So we're going to have to join this column called torque into our initial table in order to find the car with the least torque. So if I go back, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it over here, which is the torque. I'm going to make this as light blue, same way as the questions down here, bold in the middle, and then here I'm going to say VLOOKUP, open brackets, select our key, comma, select our table range, which is this one, comma, select the column we want to return, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, comma, and then 1 for an exact match. And then I want to double click this. So it's going to repeat it for all cars. And then I want to make this look nicer. Now I need to identify the car with the least torque. And to do this, I'm going to need to separate the number, the torque number from the RPM number. So what I can do is I can say torque NO, creating this new column, saying equals left, open bracket, select this, comma 3, and this is going to return only the first 3 characters of the column given. Now I have to make these characters as values, otherwise aggregations are not going to work on them. So in order to find the car with the least torque, if I do equals min, this is not going to work because this is still a text, it's 3 characters. To make the aggregation work, I have to say equals value, open brackets, close brackets, and enter, and then do this, make them look nicer in the middle. There we go. So this worked. 295, which is basically this car over here, which is the BMW 2 Series, is the number to our question. Right, let's hide this. Let's actually hide all the VLOOKUP tabs. Hide. Moving on to the if statements. Let's unhide the if statements, which is this one, the empty one. What we want to do now is that we want to create new columns that are going to have an if statement in them. So the first question we get, it says, if the horsepower is more than 400, then create a new column saying yes, otherwise no. So I'm actually going to copy the names of the columns so it's quicker, like this, and then expand this. Yep, there we go. So over here, we have to say if equals if, and then select the horsepower is more than 400, comma, then we say yes, otherwise we say no. Close brackets, enter, there we go, we have our yeses, double click over here, and then it repeats the same for all columns. So if statements are actually something you're going to be running all the time, and they're also quite easy. So we're going to run 2 more examples. Over here it says if the MSRP is higher than the average MSRP, then create a new column saying above or below average. So to achieve this, we need to calculate the average MSRP, which is what I have over here. It says average, and this is selecting this range. So this is the average MSRP. Over here now, we have to say equals if, open brackets, this number is, what is it, higher? Is it higher than this number, comma, we need to say above, otherwise we need to say below. Like this, and then close, click, enter. This is below because this number is lower than the average. Now, if I drag this down, this is not going to work. And this is because we have not logged the cell over here, which is the average MSRP for all cars. As you can see, look, it's moving. Each time I'm dragging it, it moves down, it moves down, it moves down. So what we need to do is that we need to go back at the top, select our formula, and on D20, which is basically this red over here, click F4. This is going to lock the cell, so it's not going to move down, up, left, or right. So if I repeat the same thing now, you can see that it stayed still. So it did not move. So now we have the correct values. And then the last question we have, it says, if the MSRP is above average and the horsepower is less than 300, then say good deal. Otherwise, nothing. To do this, actually, otherwise, we need to say equals if, and we need a condition here. We need to have 2 conditions. So we're going to say and then open another bracket. The first logical condition is that the MSRP is above the average, so let's say above the average, sorry, MSRP above average, and then comma, we have our second condition, and the horsepower, which is this number over here, is more than 300, then close brackets. So if both of them are correct now, since we added the end statement you see over here, then we want to say good deal. So good deal. Otherwise, we want to say nothing. So empty space, close brackets, 1, and then click enter. So here we have nothing, and let's double click this. So we have our good deals, which is basically, these lines you see over here. Right, moving on, let's hide this quickly. We have the if error. And this formula is something you're going to be using daily, just because anytime you do a deviation or the formula is returning something which is wrong, you're going to be getting this error over here, and you don't want to see this error. So let's unhide number 4 quickly so we can get there. Let's say we get a question asking us what is the horsepower by invoice price calculation. So to get the horsepower by invoice price, we have to divide horsepower with invoice price. And if we do this, if we say equals horsepower divided by invoice price, click enter. Is that the horsepower by invoice price? Yeah, we expand this. You can see that we get these errors over here. And this is saying to us that I cannot divide your number with empty. It doesn't work in math. You can't do this in math. And the reason we get this is because we have empty cells over here. Now let's say you want to get around this issue and you don't want to have this hashtag divided by 0 error. You want something else. You can say 0, or you can say empty, or you can put whatever you want by using the if error. So what you can do is say equals if error, and then repeat your formula. So this number divided by this number, invoice price, comma, if it's error, I want to say 0, for example. And then close brackets. If I run this, you can see we now have 0. Maybe I don't want to say 0. I want to say missing value, for example, missing data. So missing data. Close, enter, and then if I drag this again, you can see it says missing data. Or you can change that to whatever you want. However, if error is something you're going to be using all the time and is a very important formula to know. Right, moving on, we have the left, right, middle, and also the substitute formulas, which again, very important. You are probably going to be using these formulas daily. So let's hide this quickly and then unhide the left, right, and middle, which is this one over here, the empty one. Let's start with the question so you can see the demonstration of the formulas. The first question we get is create a new column with just the horsepower number. So we've shown this before. All we have to do is say equals left and then select the cell, comma, first 3 characters, enter. Now we have the value. And as we've said before, this is still text because we have not converted it to a number. So if I run an aggregation like the sum, this is not going to work because select the value, click enter, you see it doesn't work because it's still text. So what we should do is say equals value, value, and then left. Close brackets, enter. You can see if I drag it now, the aggregation works. Now we want to calculate the total horsepower. Oh, it's actually our second question, which is what I have shown. And then the last question we have, it says extract the RPM, which is these numbers we see over here, 5000, from horsepower. To do this now, there is a lot of ways you can do it, but we're going to use the formulas we have down here to get there. So first, I want to say equal, middle, open brackets, select the cell, comma, I want to find the starting number, which is basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So from character 7, and then I want to select 7 characters just to see what it returns. So this returns the add, then space, 0 RPM. Actually, I don't want the add, not the space. So I'm going to say start from 9 and then return 7. Click enter. So now we have 0 and then RPM. So the highest RPM numbers, as we can see, is 4 characters. So this should work. There we go, it works. We actually need one less. So I'm just going to say 6 and then click enter. There we go. So for some of them it worked, but for some of them we still have the RPM. Next, I want to remove the RPM, and to do this I can say equals, then substitute. There we go. I select the cell, comma, I want to substitute the RPM. So in brackets, I'm just going to say RPM, and I want to replace it with an empty space, with empty basically, not even space. And then close brackets, click enter, and then expand. As you can see, we have removed the RPM. And then the last step is to make this value. So I can select the whole thing, come over here, paste it, and then just say value, and then open and close brackets. This is now a value, and we can actually apply aggregations. There you go. You can see we can actually sum them like this. So yeah, this is how you can use left, right, middle, and also substitute in order to clean your columns that have a number, or maybe any columns that you want to extract something from them. Right, let's hide this quickly, and let's move on to the last thing we have, which is the rank. And again, in your line of work, you will probably need to create ranks. This is something I use very often. So if I unhide the empty one, so we can test the formulas, the first question it says create a rank, create an MSRP rank column descending. So I want to create a rank based on this column you see over here. To do this, we need to say equals rank, open brackets, select the number, comma, select the reference now, which is basically the range of the rank, which is going to be all this range. Make sure you lock this with F4 because we're going to drag it down for the rest of the cars. And then we want to select enter. So this is telling us that this Audi car ranks number 7 in terms of MSRP. By the way, this is actually descending, so we can't actually say here over descending. So 0 is descending and 1 is ascending. So 0, enter. Descending is the default, so this is working. And then this gives us the results that this car, for example, is the most expensive car. Then it's this car over here. Something else we can do is that we can apply some conditional formatting and then add one of these color scales. So this one is saying that the number 1 is the worst, which is basically the most expensive. So the cheapest car is the green one, which is this car over here. And then the next rank we want to create is based on the used and new price, which is this one over here. So we can actually copy this, paste it over here, move the range and the selection to the used and new price like I have done, and then select this to 1 because we want it to be ascending. Click enter and then drag it again. There we go, we have the rank now. So number 1 now is actually the lowest, and number 17 is actually the highest, which is opposite from the previous rank we have created. Right, so these are some of the most important and most used Excel formulas that I use probably every day. And it's actually good for you to learn how to use them because you're going to be using them all the time. Right, so this is it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've gained enough value out of this video. If you feel like you did, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and enable notifications for future videos. In the next few videos, I'm going to create a few Excel tests with a timer so you can actually go in, download them, and then test your knowledge in Excel by completing the test. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video.